Good afternoon. It's a new day. We're in the third day of February 2022. When I say third day, the thing that comes to mind is when it was said 15 days to flatten the curve. So by this estimate, if the pandemic had started on February the 1st, by Valentine's Day, we would be nearing the end of the pandemic. By February 14, by 15, we would have accomplished our mission. 16th, life would go back to normal. That's what people still remember. And of course they would, because their lives were about to be changed. And right then there were voices saying that healthy people, young people, those who are not at risk, they can carry on with their lives. And those who are at risk or those who are elderly, let them remain under some kind of lockdown, or let them be quarantined, let them be taken care of as a separate group of people. And there were other voices asking for and praising the lockdown right from the start. Those two polarized groups and opinions were evident from the very beginning. Here we are in 2022. Well, before anything else, let's take a look at the weather. Here in New Delhi, India, the local time here is 3 minutes after 1 on February the 3rd, 2022. And it says it's going to rain. The temperatures given here are in Celsius. It did rain. Right now it says it's 14. Yes, it does feel like it's 14. I'm warmly dressed. You can't see me, but I'm very comfortable at home. Let me tell you a little story before I get into the research. This morning, some workers came after the rain, and they were cleaning the street near my home. And I could overhear one of the workers saying, "Are we going to wait for the end of this corona to keep doing our work like cleaning the streets?" And they went about cleaning the street. And now they're done and they're gone. That's what we call common sense. It has nothing to do with politics or deep scientific analysis. It's simply accepting the facts as they are and being practical. You can't wait for some perfect situation to arrive to get back to life. People who have to do things, they do things, they go about their life, they accept the risks that come with life. And this is also a risk. Not a very big risk. There are bigger risks, of course. But it's made out to be as if there is no bigger threat for mankind. We know that's not the truth. Excuse me, you will have to excuse my cough. This came about, as I said, with the Omicron wave. My symptoms were runny eyes, and I got this cough around that time. And the cough has stayed with me. Just a slight tickle in the throat, that's all it is. It's not some serious thing, but just when I speak, when I talk, that's when I get this urge to cough. Interestingly, when I do my workout, I have no shortness of breath and no urge to cough. It's when the vocal cords are engaged. That's when I get the urge to cough. So, while I'm distracting you with my other narrative, probably you've already read on the screen, if you're looking on a bigger screen, what I'm searching for. Excuse me. So the search is need for a COVID-19 vaccine after Omicron variant. That is a question. Actually, do we need a COVID-19 vaccine after the Omicron variant? And we're going to look into the results. You can see I went up to page number 5 to look for the results. I'm going to go back to page number 1. And excuse me, a lot of the results are repeated. I notice page number 2 has results from page number 1. Page number 3 has results from page number 1. Even up to page number 5, a lot of the results were repeated. And then some other results were new or particular to that page. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages open. I have not gone through the articles. I will do it in real time. Some of these are from news sources and some are from the official institutions. So we will begin. It just so happens that I have a certain sequence open, and we will begin with the very first result. This is from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC. Excuse me, I don't know why they don't call it CDCP. They want to assume people understand it's control and prevention. Saving lives, protecting people, trademark. Well, let's see what they say. This is from February 2, 2022, from yesterday. That's when this was updated. You can order free at-home COVID-19 tests. The US government has made arrangement for that. Anyhow, let's read the important thing here. Omicron in the United States. CDC is working with state and local public health officials to monitor the spread of Omicron. As of December 20, 2021, Omicron had been detected in most states and territories and continues to be the dominant variant in the United States. Now, just looking at this first sentence, you would think, okay, they know this. They've been tracking it. And they know about this variant. And we'll read what they know. What we know about Omicron. CDC has been collaborating with global public health and industry partners to learn about Omicron. As we continue to monitor its course, we are still learning about how easily it spreads, the severity of illness it causes, and how well available vaccines and medications work against it. Spread. The Omicron variant spreads more easily than the original virus that causes COVID-19 and the Delta variant. CDC expects that anyone with Omicron infection can spread the virus to others, even if they are vaccinated or don't have symptoms. Probably at this point you can stop reading and you can jump to the conclusion. Herd immunity. This is it. This is the opportunity for herd immunity. Instead of trying to prevent the spread of the Omicron variant through lockdowns and mandates, this is unstoppable. This is inevitable. Even if you are vaccinated and don't have symptoms, you could still be transmitting the virus. What else do you need to know about it? This is on the CDC website. Now, let's look at symptoms. Persons infected with the Omicron variant can present the symptoms similar to previous variants. The presence and severity of symptoms can be affected by COVID-19 vaccination status, the presence of other health conditions, age, and history of prior infection. When it says history of prior infection, it is talking about the naturally acquired immunity. Let's not say the CDC does not accept naturally acquired immunity. There is a vaccine-induced immunity, which also utilizes your natural immunity, and then there is a natural infection. So you have to read in between the lines, but of course, that's what they're saying. How can they deny that? It's not scientific to deny that. Here, severe illness. Omicron infection generally causes less severe disease than infection with prior variants. Let me read that again. Omicron infection generally causes less severe disease than infection with prior variants. Preliminary data suggest that Omicron may cause more mild disease, although some people may still have severe disease, need hospitalization, and could die from the infection with this variant. Even if only a small percentage of people with Omicron infection need hospitalization, the large volume of cases could overwhelm the healthcare system, which is why it's important to take steps to protect yourself. So what they're saying two things. The risk is less, the risk of severe disease is less, and yet there is unhealthy population in the United States. This information is primarily for the United States, but anybody in the world can benefit from it. Now, the United States is not a model of good health because of diseases of lifestyle and diseases of civilization. The United States is far from a model of good health. And one cannot hold the CDC accountable or call them guilty if the population has not taken care of its health. The directives that come, I'm not using the word mandate, the directives, the advisories, the recommendations that are coming are in view of the health status of the United States population in general. If you're in good health in the United States, you're not obese, you don't have diabetes, you don't have other serious comorbidities, you are the minority in the United States. In a lot of other countries also where the similar lifestyle has been adopted over the last few decades, it's the same story. Poor eating habits, not doing exercise, sedentary lifestyle, and you have, as a consequence, people who have slipped into poor health over the decades. And of course, people age with time. Everybody does. So I'm hoping you are not getting the disturbance from the outside. But if you are, kindly excuse me for that. Or excuse them. They're just going about their work. So now, vaccines. COVID-19 vaccines remain the best public health measure to protect people from COVID-19 and reduce the likelihood of new variants emerging. This includes primary series, booster shots, and additional doses for those who need them. This is not the language of a mandate. I want you to notice where the language of mandate comes from. It is not in the CDC literature. Use this as the standard. They're saying this includes primary series, booster shots, and additional doses for those who need them. Notice where the narrative diverges from this, where it goes into the language of mandate. Identify those sources. Is it coming from the pharmaceutical company? Is it coming from the general public? Is it coming from the media sources and certain media sources? From journalists? Where is the language of mandate coming from? At this point, when we know these things. Of course, I'm going to be leaving the links to all these pages in the video description so you can refer back to them at any time. But I'm telling you already, because I made a video about mandates and its effect on the general public, the language of mandate is not coming from the CDC. Not at this time, not in this case. Continuing reading from where it says scientists. Scientists are still learning how effective COVID-19 vaccines are at preventing infection from Omicron. Current vaccines are expected to protect against severe illness, hospitalizations, and deaths due to infection with the Omicron variant. However, breakthrough infections in people who are vaccinated are likely to occur. People who are up to date with their COVID-19 vaccines and get COVID-19 are less likely to develop serious illness than those who are unvaccinated and get COVID-19. This is how the CDC puts it. What is the purpose of vaccination? The purpose of vaccination is not to stop the pandemic. It cannot stop the pandemic, especially in view of the Omicron variant. It is impossible. The pandemic will run through entire populations. It already has to a large extent, spread throughout the world. And what is the role of vaccination? It's for individual benefit to those who are vaccinated, less likely to develop serious illness than those who are unvaccinated and get COVID-19. Remember that. Excuse me, the more I talk, the more I cough. Treatments. Scientists are working to determine how well existing treatments for COVID-19 work. Some, but not all, monoclonal antibody treatments remain effective against Omicron. Public health agencies work with healthcare providers to ensure that effective treatments are used appropriately to treat patients. We have the tools to fight Omicron: vaccines, masks, testing. What is CDC doing to learn about Omicron? Variant surveillance, emergence of Omicron. All this information is on this page. I'm not going to be reading the whole thing, but I've already read what is here. This very brief. And it's not the language of fear. It is not. I see no such thing in this language. It is on the interpretation of some people if they read fear into it. I'm going to the next article. This is from the Business Standard. And I will enlarge the text. Now, this being a news source, the language is going to be different from how the CDC puts it. If you're hearing the sounds from outside, because I can really hear them, it's because there's more activity today than there was in the previous days. As I told you, there's work going on. So I think they're still cleaning the street, they're still working at it, and I don't expect them to be quiet like in an office. They're out in the street, they're working in the open, they're expected to be loud and talking. They habitually talk loudly. So let them go about what they're doing. Okay, let's read this news source. The name of the article is COVID-19. Scientists debate over need for Omicron-specific vaccine. It says here several scientists have claimed that a COVID variant-specific vaccine is not needed and that the existing shots are well effective against all variants, including Omicron. This is from New York, IANS New York. So let's read this. Several scientists have claimed that a COVID variant-specific vaccine is not needed and that the existing shots are well effective against all variants, including Omicron. However, global vaccine makers have raced ahead to develop shots against the highly mutated and transmissible Omicron variant. Excuse me. This week, both pharmaceutical firm Pfizer and biotechnology company Moderna announced that they've initiated clinical trials in which they're dosing people with Omicron-based vaccines. I understand exactly what Pfizer and Moderna are doing. They're excited about the new technology. That's one thing. They have the mRNA vaccine technology. They earned billions from it in the last year alone. And stockholders and those who are at the top management of these companies, they would be licking their lips at the name of every new variant because they have the technology to make variant-specific vaccines. And those who criticize the mRNA vaccine technology, well, you have to look into how safe the mRNA vaccines really are. If anything, these, what we call vaccines, but are actually therapeutics, are less dangerous than traditional vaccines. I'm making a very general statement, mind you, because the threat has to be detected and studied at the individual level. So I'm making a very general statement. But these mRNA vaccines are less of a danger. Now, if you have a larger population injected with these mRNA therapeutics, the risk increases because more people have been injected. Even the technique used at the time of administering the intramuscular injection has a bearing on the outcome. May seem like an insignificant thing, but as one doctor, excuse me, as Dr. John Campbell, who has a very big following on YouTube, has presented the data that not aspirating the injection increases the risk of blood clots manyfold. He, if I remember correctly, used data from Europe. I don't exactly remember where in Europe. If at the end of this video I remember, I will put the link for his YouTube video in the video description. I hope, excuse me, I hope I remember to do that. So, you know what I can do? I can open Notepad, leave a link to the video by John Campbell about aspirating the injection in the video description. Here, I made a memo, and I will look into this rather than just remembering it. I made a memo. So, where was I? I was here. I'll read a little more, and I'll leave the link for this article in the video description. But according to public health authorities and infectious disease specialists, whether rolling out these jabs is necessary or even practical is unclear, Nature reported. And I think I have that article. No, I don't have that article open. I don't have that article open, but I think I did come across that article earlier where it says, I wish they had left a link here where it says Nature reported. Anyhow, according to some, as Omicron-specific jab may not be worthwhile because cases could plummet before the manufacturers could finalize the vaccines. And at this point, you know what? I'll remember the news from Israel. Now, they have ordered 5 million doses and possibly another 5 million doses of Novavax, which is a traditional vaccine. It's not an mRNA-based vaccine. So out of apprehension, 10 million, possibly, 5 million for sure, possibly 10 million. And we are running through the Omicron variant at present. I'm sorry about these sounds. It does irritate me as well. They're just loud. Whoever this woman is, she is louder than the rest. If you can hear her. I think she's on the phone. Let me tell you this also. This is how she talks on the phone. And I can hear her from across the street. That's how loud she is. Sorry about this. That's life. Waiting for the day I have my own studio, honestly. Well, let's get back to this. According to some, an Omicron-specific jab may not be worthwhile because cases could plummet before the manufacturers could finalize the vaccines. Others point out that it's difficult to predict whether the next SARS-CoV-2 variant will be like Omicron, calling into question the utility of an Omicron-specific shot. We have a lot of confidence in the current vaccines, but we must now discuss whether to update the composition. Kanta Subbarao, who chairs the Technical Advisory Group on COVID-19 vaccine composition for the World Health Organization, WHO, was quoted as saying. So I'll leave the link for this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can read the rest of this article if you want to, but you already have a sense of what it's saying. This is from Healthline. Healthline is a good website because every link they post, let me show you here. Every link they post, they check that for accuracy, for whatever they check it for. I mean, they go through a thorough process of checking. So why is this page not scrolling? Oh, it's loading. The page is loading. I don't know why. Let me stop that. Let me refresh this page. Some kind of an ad probably was blocked by the browser. Yeah, there's some kind of code running in the background. Not a dangerous code, it's just a code on the website. And we're nearing 30 minutes as I'm looking at my timer. So what happens after the Omicron wave passes? They're already looking at that scenario. Since Omicron surged, many countries have been scrapping COVID-19 restrictions in anticipation of entering an endemic phase. Now, this article, when did this come out? I don't see a date. Oh, here. February 2, 2022. Just yesterday. Fact checked by Dana K. Cassell. Cassell or Castle. Maybe Castle. So, good website, really. Healthline is a good website. Second bullet point. Even after the Omicron wave passes, spotty immunity across the globe and a new variant could threaten progress. Well, if your goal is to just wipe out the virus or to conquer it, that is not a goal that's realistic, regardless of technology, regardless of ambition, regardless of how well organized. Nature has its own mind and method. You have to live with nature. You have to fight with nature also at times. But if humankind thinks ever it's going to conquer nature, I'm sorry to disappoint you. That is not going to happen. Nature will always fight back, and eventually nature will win. And in that victory, if we are working with nature, is also our victory. That's the ancient Indian wisdom, the way this country and society has been for thousands of years. In old Indian literature, you see this kind of wisdom, if you ever get a chance to read through it. Okay, wow, a lot of distraction, deviation on my part here. In a post-Omicron world, lockdowns will likely be phased out, but short-term restrictions and individual precautions such as masks may be needed in emergencies. Well, that's not a pretty picture they're painting. Okay, is Omicron our exit wave out of the active phase of the COVID-19 pandemic? After 2 years of living through a global pandemic, many scientists and policymakers are trying to answer what happens next. And what happens next, as far as decision making is concerned, should be with greater wisdom, with more practical thinking, less politics, hopefully. The Omicron variant of SARS-CoV-2 has driven an unprecedented number of infections worldwide despite surfacing in November. They checked that, and that's, of course, correct. Countries with high levels of immunity, either from vaccines or previous infections, have also seen lower rates of hospitalizations and deaths. This is also the result of Omicron being milder than its predecessors, and they checked that, milder. And any place, look at that, trusted sources and BMJ, that's how they check their links. They only link to what, where they could not check the link, they have not marked it. It links to Denmark, it links to Dr. William Schaffner, but those are not, I think they have a list of verified sites from where they link to, and those are the links that are verified, checked. Excuse me. So reading here, some countries in Europe, such as Denmark and the United Kingdom, despite having a high number of daily COVID-19 cases, have already eased or lifted many restrictions. It's based on the anticipation that we are about to enter an endemic phase, but we are not there yet. As the saying goes, we've seen this movie before. There's a great tendency, and we're seeing it here in the United States also, to lift restrictions, said Dr. William Schaffner, professor of preventive medicine and infectious diseases at Vanderbilt University Medical Center in Nashville, Tennessee. I do like Tennessee. Great music comes from that place, from Nashville, Tennessee. Another distraction. All right, let's continue. Also, many experts will still believe some countries may be rushing in their decisions and warn against being too optimistic. Here is what experts predict will happen as Omicron loses steam. So, these are the subheadings. COVID-19 could become endemic this year. I'm not going to be reading everything. COVID-19's endgame, the biggest threats. And that is it. Oh, no, there's more. New variants, not a question of if, but how bad. And what endemic means. Annual boosters, a possibility, but not for all. Post-Omicron timely restrictions, but few lockdowns. And there the article ends. So not a very long article. Had I spent a few more minutes and not getting distracted or sidetracked, I could go through it in less than 5 minutes. So you will have the link for this also. In the sequence, the links will be in the sequence as I'm considering them. This is from NIH, National Library of Medicine, PubMed Central. This would be more technical, of course. Omicron SARS-CoV-2 variant, a new chapter in the COVID-19 pandemic. This article has been corrected. See Lancet. So there's a Lancet article. This article has been cited by other articles in PMC. So I'm very glad they keep a list of updates and corrections. That's what a good source does. Let's look at how long this article is. It mentions again at the end, January 6th, there was a correction. We declared no competing interests. That's always good to see. And all these references, 17 references. Should I be reading from this article or just leave a link? I'll read just the first couple of paragraphs. So that you don't say that, hey, he just left a link, he didn't even read it. Nope, that's not like me. If I leave a link, I go through at least a portion of it, if not the whole thing. On November 25, 2021, about 23 months since the first reported case of COVID-19 and after a global estimated 260 million cases and 5.2 million deaths, a new SARS-CoV-2 variant of concern, VOC, Omicron, was reported. Omicron emerged in a COVID-19 weary world in which anger and frustration with the pandemic are rife amid widespread negative impacts on social, mental, and economic well-being. Although previous VOCs emerged in a world in which natural immunity from COVID-19 infections was common, this fifth VOC has emerged at a time when vaccine immunity is increasing in the world. Well, it's a very nice way to introduce realistic and humane. The emergence of the alpha, beta, and delta SARS-CoV-2 VOCs were associated with new waves of infections, sometimes across the entire world. For example, the increased transmissibility of the delta VOC was associated with, among others, a higher viral load, longer duration of infectiousness, and higher rates of reinfection because of its ability to escape from natural immunity, which resulted in the Delta VOC rapidly becoming the globally dominant variant. The Delta VOC continues to drive new waves of infection and remains the dominant VOC during the fourth wave in many countries. Concerns about lower vaccine efficacy because of new variants have changed our understanding of the COVID-19 endgame, disabusing the world of the notion that global vaccination is by itself adequate for controlling SARS-CoV-2 infection. Excellent, excellent observation. Let me read that again. From this point, disabusing the world of the notion that global vaccination is by itself adequate for controlling SARS-CoV-2 infection. And there were people who used their common sense. I know people like that, who used their common sense and were saying this when? They were saying this even in 2020. But science gradually catches up to where instinct already has reached. And that is the big difference. There's another difference. Science is a method of making sure. Instincts can sometimes lead us through insight, but sometimes instinct can also mislead. As there was this mention of natural immunity, and there's a reference given here. So just claiming natural immunity is the final solution, the final comprehensive solution, as some doctors have said. Upon closer examination, there is, we understand, there's a slightly misleading notion. But also, this notion that you can vaccinate your way out of the pandemic, that is also a wrong, unscientific notion. I'm just going to finish this paragraph here, starting from where it says, indeed. Indeed, VOCs have highlighted the importance of vaccination in combination with existing public health prevention measures, such as masks, as a pathway to viral endemicity. So, the approach they're still talking of caution. What I would say at this point is, why don't they focus on improving people's health, changes in lifestyle, improving health, better nutrition? Those things are the things that can make the big difference, not vaccines alone. Definitely not vaccines. Are we looking forward to a generation of human beings who are just vaccine dependent and not concerned with their health? I think we're already there, and we have to get out of this, not go deeper into this way of addressing illnesses. We address illness through better health, better lifestyles. And I include myself in that. I take care of myself, but I can do better in taking care of myself. And that is my lesson. Exercise, nutrition, rest, sleep, supplements where needed. So all these things. Well, let's go to this article reported by Jade Scipione. Jade Scipione is probably on Twitter as well. Yep, that's a Twitter handle. Why you may need an Omicron-specific vaccine even after this COVID surge ends, Moderna's top doctor says. Of course. Are you going to expect Moderna's top doctors say not to get vaccinated? When did that ever make sense? Here I made something worth billions and I'm asking you not to buy it. How is that going to make any sense? Not to the top CEOs and top management. They'll be telling you to subscribe to their vaccination program. Billions coming in year after year. Here we go. Let's read first 3 paragraphs, and then I'll leave the link. We're going on 45 minutes. An Omicron-specific vaccine is on the way, and according to Moderna's top doctor, it'll likely become the COVID immunization you get alongside your flu shot each year. Wonderful! Wonderful! Business opportunity of a lifetime. Both Moderna and Pfizer are in the midst of clinical trials for vaccines designed to combat COVID's Omicron variant less than 2 months after the first Omicron case hit the US. Last week, Moderna announced that it had entered phase 2 of its trial and had already given out its first dose to a human participant. These shots aren't intended to be a quick fix. They probably won't be ready for the US Food and Drug Administration approval for months, meaning unvaccinated or unboosted people shouldn't wait around for their arrival. Standard COVID boosters from both Pfizer and Moderna are 90% effective against hospitalizations from Omicron infections, according to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention data published last week. I'm going to stop reading here. Well, let me read this one more paragraph and say what I want to, which I've already said in this video. Rather, the Omicron-specific vaccines are meant as a long-term tool against COVID because both Omicron and COVID's Delta variant are likely to stick around for a while as endemic virus strains. Moderna Chief Medical Officer Dr. Paul Burton tells CNBC Make It. What I'm going to say is, instead of focusing on vaccines, focus on your health. Focus on your health. That will keep you out of the hospitals. Unless you're in a stage of life where someone is very old and has been ill for years, those are factors which we can grant, okay, now this person is not going to be the same as a young person who is healthy. And I'll also say this here, that there are young, healthy people who have been affected by this virus, severely affected. So being young and healthy was also not a guarantee. But if we take only those cases and make it a blanket generalization for all the young and healthy people, then that would be a mistake. One of the lessons was that we did not know who is at risk, other than there was a finding that one blood group A, is more susceptible to SARS-CoV-2. That was a concrete finding that came out from the studies about this pandemic. And you hardly see anyone mention that. That was a very important finding. So this virus was more detrimental to certain genetic makeup. We know that, but we don't know everything. Probably will take 10 years for us to know everything there is to know. But that doesn't mean for 10 years we're not going to live our lives. We know enough now, and we're fortunate that we have the Omicron variant, which we have read over and over again is less dangerous for the general public. And this is the BMJ, COVID-19 Omicron and the need for boosters. And should I be reading this article? It's not very long. And well, let me read just from under the subheading, Has Omicron increased the need for boosters? And I'll leave the link for this also in the video description. Since we're nearing about 50 minutes, this is longer than I had expected. But since we're here, why not? Excuse me. Booster doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been rolled out in many countries since the summer. Let me just say also, changes in weather. Changes in weather affect the pandemic. They affect the transmission and of the virus, and the pandemic doesn't go in a straight line, doesn't go all the way up all the time, it doesn't go down all the time. There's seasonal variations, like other epidemiologists have remarked. So, I'll start reading this again. Booster doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been rolled out in many countries since the summer because of concerns over waning immunity and the risk of another wave of infection over the winter. However, new concerns about the more transmissible Omicron variant and its apparent ability to reduce vaccine effectiveness have led to some countries, including the UK, to speed up their booster rollout in an attempt to keep immunity levels high. This article came out, when did this come out? Published 14 December 2021, no wonder. So that's why I'm looking at this information thinking, well, this is different from what I read, because it's from last year. And even in that short period, in a little over a month, information has gone through change. So I'm not going to be reading this whole article because I could call it outdated, though it's from just 14 December 2021. I'll leave the link for this in the description also. That helps you compare. So that's good. They have these metrics. That's good. So you know. This article is made freely available for use in accordance with BMJ's website terms and conditions, etc., etc. I'll leave the link for this also. So we're done. We started with need for a COVID-19 vaccine after Omicron variant. This will be the title of the YouTube video, which I'll be uploading in a little while from now. And then you can spend your time, if you wish, listening to what I have to say. I hope you do. So, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your attention. And it's time to say goodbye. So, goodbye. Goodbye to you. And take care.